Prabhupada Jai. Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Gurudev, Gurudev, Gurudev Jaya Jaya Gurudev. Jai, 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 Jai. Hari Hari Bol. Is this better? Hare Krishna. Just wanted to check the devotees who are watching on the video. Are you able to hear me clearly? Okay, perfect. So this is not too bad, the distance. So, Namam Vishnupadaya Krishnapastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Tirtha Swaminita Namine. Namaste Krishnapadaya Prabhupada Shritatmane Gaura Karuna Shakti Bhakti Tirtha Namine. Namam Vishnupadaya Krishnapastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminita Namine. Namaste Saraswat Devam Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavad Pashyate Desatarine. Om Ajnana Timrandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Melitamena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitamena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamakyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Gurum Sri Yutapada Kamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakanvitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare. Nityananda Vadutendur Vasudha Pranavallabha Janava Jivitapatihi Krishna Prema Prada Prabhu Padmavati Sutta Sriman Sachinandana Purvajaha Bhavonmatta Jagatrata Rakta Gaura Kalevaraha. Namo Namo Aniruddhaya Hishikesha Indriyatmane Namaha Paramahamsaya Purnaya Nibrtatmane Swarga Pavarga Dwaraya Nityam Suchi Sade Namaha. Namah Hiranyaviryaya Chaturhotraya Tantave. So the previous week we stopped at verse 59. We spoke on verse 59 and we just want to touch upon the previous week's session before we move forward again. The most important concept which was shared in the previous session was the concept of the purification that occurs in Krishna consciousness. How do we purify ourselves in the process of sadhana bhakti in Krishna consciousness? So that's a very typical verse. We also noticed that in this particular verse, Krishna, in the previous verse, in this verse, Krishna makes a shift. He makes a shift in terms of, initially in verse 54, Arjuna seeks answers to the symptoms of one who is transcendentally situated. Krishna describes the symptoms in the next few verses, and then there is an abrupt shift where Krishna starts instructing on how one may attain such a position. Initially, there's a description of the position of transcendental consciousness, and then next, how do you attain such consciousness, which is natural. So the next few verses are focused more on devotees who are pursuing the path of sadhana bhakti, who have not attained the platform of transcendental consciousness. 54 and 55, Krishna describes transcendence. 55, 56, there's a description of transcendence. 57, there's a description of transcendence. 58, there's a shift. Right? 58, there's a shift. 59, there's a shift. In reality, 59 is the focus, where he makes a shift going from what is ideal, what is to be attained. He moves from the goal to the practice which is going to attain the goal. He starts going from the end to the means. And the most important concept of Krishna consciousness is recognition of the fact that mere suppression of desires and mere external suppression of desires is not going to help. There has to be internal purification, and the internal purification results in an organic progress in Krishna consciousness. None of us practically have been forced. We have not been forced to take up Krishna consciousness. We have not been forced to take on the principles of regulative freedom. We have been given the principles. We are being preached to, because essentially the intelligence has to come in play, and intelligence has to accept the instructions so that it could take on the instructions. So we are being preached. Krishna is delivering instructions to us, but there is absolutely no forcible following of instructions, as is the case with some other schools of thought. So in Krishna consciousness, we recognize the fact that suppression alone will not lead to any results. Suppression on its own is not going to lead to any results. But is suppression required? Do we need to force ourselves during the process of sadhana bhakti? What is the answer? Yes. Sadhana bhakti essentially means that there is application of force. The force comes through the agency of Guru. The force comes through the agency of Guru, where instructions are being given. We are being forced to follow. And why is there a need for force? Old habits die hard. Yes, there is a need for force. What else? Very good. Initially, I spoke of it in the previous week's sessions. I was very clear. I said that one who is situated in samadhi, Krishna describes that position, one who is situated in samadhi is not fragmented. He does not lead a fragmented existence. He leads, or she leads, a wholesome existence. There is absolutely no struggle with different segments of our existence fighting for dominance. In the current state of conditioning, there is a fight for dominance. The senses make their demand. The mind and intelligence run towards fulfilling the demand of the senses. So there is fragmentation. The senses make a demand, and the intelligence and the mind force and run behind the senses to fulfill those demands. Right? Now, who is resident in the body? The soul. The Atma is resident in the body, and the Atma has a desire. And what is the specific intrinsic quality and desire of the Atma? To serve. Intrinsic desire of the Atma can never ever be happy without being able to serve the divine couple. Therefore, the primary sadhana which is being given to us is the chanting of the holy names, and the chanting of the Maha Mantra is nothing but a prayer for service. It is a prayer for service, and it is the most essential prayer because it brings us to our original platform of being able to connect to the divine couple in a specific role. The Maha Mantra is very, very specific. We are requesting for opportunities to serve. And service can take on any flavor. And there's a purpose for us to be requesting for service. And the purpose is to bring this completely fragmented existence and allow it to become wholesome again. Initially, we are starting with a fragmented existence. The senses do not want to obey the desires or fall in line with the desires of the soul. The intelligence is weak. The mind is powerless. The mind runs after the desires or the intentions of the senses. So in such a situation, there is a requirement for force, and we start regulating the senses. So initially, there is force. Now we are regulating the senses and breaking and bringing down a broken object together. It's like a crystal. It is like a glass pane which has been shattered. Every single piece of the pane is shattered. Now we are bringing everything together. We are reining in the horses of the senses, and it is being done by force. We do so, and by doing so, it takes a lot of energy. During the process of sadhana bhakti, during the process of anartha nivritti, which is the process where we are in the process of giving up the toxic desires, giving up the reactions which take us away from our original position. So there's a complete fragmentation, and then now we are slowly getting to, and we are leading a very centered existence. Sadhana is making an attempt to lead a centered existence. What is centered? Who is in the center? Krishna. And within the body, who is in the center? The desires of the soul should be center. Agreed? The soul is the owner. Soul occupies the body. The desires of the soul, the intrinsic nature of the soul should dominate. So now there is a centered existence. The different limbs of the body, the senses, the mind, intelligence, they are all falling in line with the desires of the soul. By doing so, we lead a centered existence, but there is a struggle. 80% of the energy during the process of anartha nivritti goes down in putting down unwanted desires. 20% goes towards the Lord's divine service. 80% of our effort goes in putting down unwanted desires. This is anartha nivritti. So there is force, and we're leading this existence which is not wholesome. We are forcing ourselves. Initially, there is immense force required to give up gross habits. Later on, there is immense subtle pressure. And this goes on, and 80% of the energy goes in just merely trying to be wholesome. It's a big struggle. Merely trying to be wholesome, 80% of the energy goes. So the remaining 20%, we offer it to Krishna. So maybe if you're chanting 16 rounds, waking up early in the morning, you are probably chanting 2 or 3 rounds with focused attention, being able to chant them. The remaining rounds, we are not able to chant. There's great struggle in just aligning the mind and intelligence and being able to hear the Maha Mantra. Every time we pick up the beads and we are calling out the names, the mind keeps getting distracted. It flows away into different thoughts. How much energy goes in just bringing the mind and forcing the hearing process to work in hearing the chanting of the Maha Mantra? 80% of the energy goes in just doing that. 20% we chant and we hear the mantra. The whole process of 80-20 gets reversed when we become purified of anarthas. Once we reach a point of becoming purified of unwanted desires, which are nothing but sinful reactions. What is preventing us from connecting to Krishna? Nothing but our sinful reactions. These are our reactions from the past. These reactions manifest themselves as desires. These desires take us away from the original purpose of existence. And 80% of the energy goes in just fighting those desires in the initial stages. It requires force, it requires the orders of the Guru. That is the reason why there's great dependence at all times on the mercy of the Lord for us to be able to fight these desires. Now there are samskaras which are involved. What are the samskaras? We have to constantly remind the mind and remind the intelligence. I am a devotee. I am wearing devotional clothes. I have a certain behavior. I have some kind of speech. I wear tilak. Krishna is in the center of my home. When I come into when I come in home, Krishna is in the center. There's a certain modicum. Once I enter into the home, I have to leave my shoes out because Krishna is in the center. I only eat in certain places. I only eat one kind of food. This is training without which we will not survive. This is training without which we cannot survive. If we do not develop the habit of constantly reminding the mind and the intelligence that we are in the battlefield, and we have to be trained. We have to be trained to constantly remember that we are soldiers and we are heading towards serving Lord Chaitanya's army. But we need to be trained. We need to be reminded this is our primary purpose. So there is a role which is being played by several aspects of our existence. There is a role to be played in the kind of dress we wear. There's a role to be played in the tilak. There's a role to be played in everything. These are samskaras. What is the meaning of samskara? Impressions. These are impressions. Every time you don a certain kind of dress and you dress in a certain way and you wear tilak and then you go with a certain purpose, you are creating samskaras in the chitta, in the consciousness. And the more and more firm these samskaras become, it becomes easier for the senses to remember and become aligned. So there is a certain need for you to wake up at a certain time. So the senses are reminded, this particular time of the day, I will be doing this particular activity. There is a samskara which is being created in the chitta. There is a certain need to choose a certain place in your house. It may be right here in front of the deities. It could be in the bedroom. It could be anywhere. Choose one place where you will not be disturbed, and that place is your spot. Extremely important in sadhana bhakti. Because once you create that particular field and you create that exact surrounding, that becomes a place where the moment you sit there, your mind knows it should not disturb you. Over a period of time, it will get trained. That spot, you sit there, you should not be disturbed. You're going to pick up your beads. You're going to call on the holy names. Do you realize how important it is of creating habits? These are small things which can be missed. Sitting in one spot. Waking up at a specific time every day. Samskara on the mind, on the chitta. Very important. Every day you wake up at a certain time, you do a certain kind of activity, you sit in a certain spot, you pick up your beads and you call out, you will find it easier to control your mind than not. If you keep moving and you think that you can chant here, you can chant there, it's going to be difficult. Because you're training the mind and the senses to lead a wholesome existence. You're going from complete fragmentation to a wholesome existence. There is a certain process. Right? So this is required. It cannot be that you wake up one day and you chant at 5 o'clock, you will chant 16 rounds. The next day you will do the chanting in the night. Some other third day you will only chant 8. It won't work. Why doesn't it work? It doesn't work because the mind will take over. You don't have a habit. It is said, even the materialists say that you do anything for 21 days, it will become a habit. If you have a problem waking up, you wake up at a certain time for 21 days, it's going to become a habit. The body will train itself. So there is a certain impression which is being created in the chitta during sadhana bhakti. We force ourselves. During deity worship, we force ourselves to wake up and keep the deity right in the center, being able to serve the needs of the deity. There's a certain force. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? How many upacharas we have? We have 8 upacharas. We can offer 3. Upacharas means offerings. During the process of deity worship, there can be 3 offerings, there can be 5 offerings, there can be 8 offerings, there can be 16 offerings, 64, it goes on. So these offerings follow a certain order. And every time you go through this, it's very powerful in creating impressions in the heart of becoming a servant of the Lord. It's very, very powerful if it is done properly, because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you keep doing it every day, you become habituated to serving. It creates wonderful samskaras in the heart, and we become habituated of becoming Krishna-centered. Because it trains you to keep his needs right in the front and the center. Do we realize? So there is a certain need here for practice, there is a certain need here for patterns. And if we don't establish a healthy pattern, you would not be able to fix yourself in the service of the Lord. It's a very big challenge. In Vrindavan, the devotees wake up at 2 o'clock. Very senior Vaishnavas, they wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning, and immediately there's a certain urgency. The urgency is immediately they go and then attend to calls of nature, wash their feet, wash their mouth, they will pick up their beads. That urgency comes because there's a great desire to serve by chanting the holy names. There is no force involved. You cannot jump out of bed at 2 o'clock by force. It is spontaneous. But that spontaneity occurs after all the garbage has been cleansed away. And that garbage cleansing requires setting of patterns. The garbage cleansing requires force. The garbage cleansing requires focus. If that's not happening, it will be very difficult. Are you finding it difficult to hear? Okay. Is this fine? Okay, we're just trying to still figure this out. Okay. So, the first process is set patterns. So now we are talking about moving from a fragmented existence to a wholesome existence. Right? And Krishna, when he talks of samadhi, he's talking about a wholesome existence. And I explained this to you. A wholesome existence is where your mind and your senses and your intelligence, they will have absolutely no resistance to the plans of the soul. In such a situation, there cannot be any resistance because there is no material barrier that disconnects you, the soul, from connecting to Krishna, who is omnipresent. When you call out the holy names, Krishna appears in the atmosphere, and in such a situation where these barriers have been broken, one can see Krishna, interact with him. That's the process of Krishna consciousness. That's the process which has been given by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And the whole idea of chanting of the holy names is for us to get into that particular process. The chanting of the holy names is a prayer for service, specific. And service is required to do what? To experience, that is fine. What else? Go in the same context as I've just been explaining. What does service do? What does service do for a fragmented existence? It allows you to align yourself. The more and more and more you serve, and the more and more and more there's an opportunity for service, automatically it allows you to center Krishna. Krishna comes into the front, he comes into the center. It allows us to develop a culture of service to the divine couple. So the chanting process is so powerful that it's a call at Krishna. We are calling Krishna, we are calling Srimati Radharani, saying, please engage us in your service. And that is the most important aspect of our sadhana. If the chanting process is extremely focused and it is done well, nothing else is required. Everything else will automatically follow. Every problem of a devotee, every problem of a sadhaka is because of namaprad. Every problem, practically every challenge a devotee faces in devotional service is due to namaprad. Offensive chanting. Seva unmukehi jihvadav. Everything starts with seva. Seva unmukehi jihva adav. What is the meaning of jihva? Tongue. Adav. You start with the tongue, you honor Krishna Prasadam, and you chant the holy names of the Lord. That's the first step. By doing so, everything else should fall in order. But imagine circumstances where the first step is not in order. That's where the challenges are. That is the reason for delay. That is the reason why lifetimes are spent with devotees not being able to make progress. Sri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, average devotees would take 3 lifetimes to go back to Godhead. Now, I have no idea as to what his definition of average was. I do not know. But I'm just trying to tell you, paraphrasing, average devotee would take 3 lifetimes. First lifetime, anartha nivritti, clearing process. Second lifetime, the person goes from anartha nivritti to nishtha, to ruchi, ashakti, bhav. Third lifetime from bhav to prem. 3 lifetimes to attain Krishna prema. But it need not be so. It need not be 3 lifetimes. Every instruction and every paraphernalia and all circumstances and environment for attaining it in 1 lifetime has already been given by Srila Prabhupada. In many cases, you walk into a temple program, you hear all you need to go back to Godhead in just 1 temple program. In 1 class, you will hear about chanting, you will hear about seva, you will hear about sadhu sangha. Normally. You will have opportunity to serve, sing and dance. You will have opportunity to taste prasad. All that is required in a nutshell is given in just 1 session. Can you imagine how powerful that is? So why take 3 lifetimes? It can be done in 1 lifetime. And what is the biggest obstacle and why it takes 3 lifetimes? Weak chanting. The process of chanting is faulty. The process of sadhana bhakti has not been taken up. The 80-20 process has not been moved to become 20-80. It has not even become 50-50. It still stays 80-20. Big struggle. Several years. In some cases, even after many, many years, devotees face challenges in doing the most fundamental aspects of sadhana. Waking up. Controlling and regulating the eating process. Big obstacle. So that is the most important aspect where we are moving from a fragmented existence to becoming wholesome. And that is real freedom. Right now, this dead body is dragging us around. This body is dead. Does everyone accept it? This body is dead by the arrangement of the Lord. Do not be convinced that this is not dead. This is a dead body. And as long as we cater to the demands of the body, we are catering to the demands of a dead body. And when someone is catering and focusing on the demands of a dead body, is this person alive or dead? They themselves are living a life of death. But on the other hand, when we start focusing on the needs of the consciousness, needs of the soul, such a person leads the life of a person who is alive. Real living is needing, or rather heeding, the desires of the soul. Real living is waking up to the desires of the soul. That's real living. It's logical, is it not? That when we cater to something that is going to die in a matter of days, weeks, months, years, then we are living a death. Every day we are walking around. You know, you heard of the word zombies. We are walking around like zombies, not alive to existence. We simply do not know what to experience and what not to experience. We are living a life of death. But when we become alive to the desires of the soul, then we are living life. That's wholesome life. Initially, the wholesome life starts with force, and later on it becomes spontaneous. It becomes spontaneous when the senses stop fighting, when the intelligence is fully cooperative, and the mind fully acts on the instructions of the intelligence. That's existence. So now let's go to verse 59. How does such an existence come? Krishna talks about it in verse 59. He says, Param drishtva nivartate. What is the verse and what is the translation? The embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, though the taste for sense object remains. In the previous session we spoke of how we cut the power from a fan, and as we cut the power from a ceiling fan, what do we see? The fan still rotates. The power has been cut off. And how do we cut the power of the fan? We unplug it, we turn the power off. So in a similar fashion, material existence is such that from material existence we come in touch with the Sadguru who transforms our heart. We spoke of it the previous time, right? Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chittete Koryaikya. Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chittete Koryaikya. The chitta is being transformed by the Guru, and instructions are entering into the Guru, from the Guru to the disciple. And once that starts, the particular instruction, the seed of devotion that is being sown into the heart, starts destroying the dirt which is in the region of the heart. Starts destroying it. One particle of spirit can destroy everything. It is destroying it. The destruction happens, and slowly, steadily, we are coming from a complete material existence to recognizing that, oh, we are spirit souls. But while we transition from recognizing that we are spirit souls, we are still in the material conditioning, the desires for sense enjoyment will still remain. We have cut off the source, and how best to cut off the source? Replace everything that you have been doing by connecting it to Krishna. If you had friends, replace them with devotees, association. Ado Shraddha, tata sadhu sango, atha bhajana kriya. Make them devotees, even better. Bring them in touch with Krishna, the best. So the association part is so important, because once you cut that off, it is like cutting the power of the fan. Only some unwanted contamination remains in the heart, because the main source of contamination has already been cut off. It is not going to work if we want to continue life exactly as we did before, and thinking that something wonderful is going to come out of all the nonsense that we did in the past. Nothing wonderful will come out of it. Nothing. Do not be kidding yourself, because you can kid yourself for years and lifetimes. We can do that, and we have done that. Nothing wonderful can come from old habits. Old habits will lead to old results. So if there has to be change, change has to be there. They elected a president in America because he used the word change. People want to change, right? Everybody wants to change. Everybody wants to change, and they want to introduce change in their lives. Everybody is seeking answers, right? So in such circumstances, understand that without change and without changing our existence from the past, we cannot hope that something wonderful will come out in the future. There has to be change. But how can the process of change take place? Has it got to be abrupt? No. The process of change can be a gradual process of change. It can be organic. We come in touch with Krishna, keep in touch with the devotees, engage in service of the Lord, call out the holy names. Gradually, the old habits will die. Let's not go with the adage saying old habits die hard. The old habits here die easy. They will really die because the spiritual sword, the sword of knowledge, can cut everything. So once we come in touch with the devotees and we take it on and we cut the old association, most important, especially the Sangha, which has been harmful. Once you recognize that something has been harmful, it should be cut off. That intelligence has to be applied. And then gradually the process of purification will occur. We come in touch with devotees. With their help, we move forward. It is gradual. Param drishtva nivartate. We develop higher taste. And we move on. The lower is being given up because the higher taste has come in play. It's very simple. The lower is given up because something higher has come in play. What is the difficulty if someone is given a promotion at work? they can surely give up activity which they were doing, which was somewhat of a lesser category. So lower is being given up organically because something new, something better has come in play. That's the experience of Krishna consciousness. Krishna answers very clearly, suppression is not going to help. Suppression is not going to help. There has to be purification of desires, and it has to be organic. It is called param drishtva nivartate. That's the process of Krishna consciousness. And how does it start? It starts with prasadam. It starts with chanting. Very simple, very beautiful, very easy to do process. There's no difficulty in following the Yuga Dharma. There's no difficulty, no challenge in following the Yuga Dharma. It's very powerful. Let's go on to verse 60. Please read after me. Yatato hi api kaunteya purushasya vipaschitah indriyani pramatini haranti prasabam manah. The senses are so strong and impetuous, O Arjun, that they forcibly carry away the mind, even of a man of discrimination, who is endeavoring to control them. So what is Krishna instructing here? He is instructing us very carefully. He is instructing Arjun, saying, Arjun, the battle is not easy. He is preparing Arjun, he is preparing us for the battle, saying it is not easy. The senses are so powerful that they can carry away the desires, they can carry away someone even who can discriminate. So there is absolutely no question of someone saying, I can control them. So the process of purification is not so much in controlling. The process of purification is in engaging them in the service of the Lord. Unless the senses are brought in touch with Krishna, that process of purification will not occur. The senses have to be brought in touch with Krishna, and the first sense that has to be aligned with Krishna is the sense of taste. Ado, right? Jihvado, jihva. Whatever we eat, it's said in English. What is the saying here? A man is what he eats, or I'm sorry, I forget the exact expression. You are what you eat. You are what you eat, so it starts there. If you do not honor Krishna Prasadam, then the process of Krishna consciousness will have stumbling blocks. You are what you eat. So the process of controlling the senses is so natural, is so wonderful. Offer wonderful foodstuffs to Krishna and then consume them. Automatically everything else will fall in place. Automatically everything else will fall in place. It's so powerful. So it is the offering which was given to us, the whole program that was given to us by Srila Prabhupada has been designed so powerfully. It is such a wonderful aspect that every aspect of Krishna consciousness is being covered. It's a culture, it's a lifestyle which is being offered. It is not something where you force yourself in doing something, to the extent to which it becomes bitter. Everything here is organic. Everybody has to eat, sleep, mate, defend. Connect the process of eating, sleeping, mating, defending to Krishna, and the process of purification starts right away. It is organic. It's param drishtva nivartate. Organically, you move into going from a materialistic focus to a spiritual focus. Organically, the broken down, fragmented existence becomes wholesome. Because the senses are extremely strong. They cannot be controlled. They cannot be controlled. Even someone thinks they're intelligent, a man of discrimination. I can discriminate something is wrong. How many times have we done things that are wrong in our lives? Many times. We surely know that something is wrong. We surely know the pursuit of something could actually be harmful, but we do move forward because the senses are so powerful, they just draw us in. The senses are so powerful, they just draw us in. So there are different senses with different weaknesses. We can talk about it. Normally, the Shastras give the example of 4 animals, and the first animal which they talk about is the elephant. The elephant is very eager for sense pleasure, and it is captured by the hunters having a female elephant in a very big pit. And the sense of smell of the female elephant drives the elephant blindly towards that huge pit. And it falls down, and the hunters capture it for ivory. That's how they capture elephants. So that's the weakness of an elephant, the sense of smell. A fish which is in the water, if you dangle a worm, the fish is not able to discriminate that there is death. The fish can only see that this is so wonderful, I must taste it. It goes and it grabs the hook, grabs the worm, it meets death. A fish dies because of the sense of taste. A deer has a weakness of hearing. And the process of hearing is such that the hunters trap a deer by playing different kinds of music, apparently. So the sense of hearing becomes a source of death for the deer. There are certain kind of flies which just destroy themselves by sight, by looking at fire. So you build a fire, they forcibly are so attracted because they have a weakness of sight. The sense of sight is so dangerous, they cannot control themselves. They go fall into the fire and give up life. So the different senses in different species become a source of death. For human existence, which is the sense which is the most powerful and can become a source of death? No. All the senses. Every sense of touch, sense of taste, sense of hearing, sense of sight. Every one of these senses has the capacity to award death. We can be dragged away by every one of them very powerfully towards our death. Lifetime after lifetime, we can come into one of these bodies. These horrible bodies, we can come into one of them, and we can again leave and come back into one of them, again leave and come back into one of them. Real suffering has not been seen by us. If we had even the slightest perception, slightest realization of what it is to lie in the womb of a mother for 9 months, we have absolutely no perception. If any one of us has realization of what it is to be in a curled up position, the fetal position, right? It's pretty uncomfortable even if you have flexible limbs. For 9 months, the child is in the womb of the mother and is subjected to the whims and fancies of the mother. If the mother eats spicy food, the child's body burns. If the mother watches movies which are improper, the child becomes frightened, experiences fear. If the mother does any other activity, in some cases, they continue doing drugs, they smoke, they drink, the child is subjected to all those travails. It is imprisonment. Imagine being in a position where, this space which is out there is so small, and you're curled up, and you are there for 9 months. We cannot even imagine or perceive how difficult it is to stay in that position even for 1 day. What to say of 9 months? Since we have no perception of the suffering that we endure, we desire to go through it again and again. If Krishna leaves even a small trace of memory from being in the womb in our mind, we would not fail to take up Krishna consciousness seriously. The trauma of coming out through the birth canal can itself be horrific. So the demigods cut off memory of that experience when the child is born. But even in such circumstances, you notice that in some cases where the mother is pregnant with the baby and the husband ill-treats the woman, The child who is born develops an aversion towards the father right from the onset, because they can experience it. They can experience the hatred experienced by their mother right in the womb. There's so much sensitivity. What does it tell you? Prahalad Maharaj was instructed in the science of Krishna consciousness while being in the womb. Abhimanyu learnt how to penetrate the Chakravyu while being in the womb, because I think it was Krishna, it was Arjun who was teaching, or rather showing Subhadra the ways to penetrate, or rather set up the Chakravyu, the battle formation, and only stopped exactly on how to enter. He didn't teach about how to get out. I think he was interrupted at that time. Abhimanyu was able to pick up. What does this tell you? It tells you very clearly that the child who is in the womb is quite conscious. The child is able to experience. Fortunately, the retentive power and the selective memory which is being given by the Lord, there's a great blessing, there's protection there. The trauma of being incarcerated for 9 months is great. If there is even the slightest perception, we would wake up and we would start crying, not only for ourselves, we will cry out for every individual that we see on the streets. That perception is not there. It's a nightmare. Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadi. One wonders what is so difficult about Janma. We can understand about Mrityu, Jara, old age, Vyadi, which is disease. Why is Janma a part of the travails of material existence? Janma is not ordinary. It is traumatic for the mother, it's traumatic for the child, right? Both cases. Very difficult. Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadi. So one has to realize that. So that's the reason why it is extremely important for us to take up Krishna consciousness in such a way that we are able to move ahead and we can move forward powerfully. Because this particular cycle has to stop. So the whole process of eating, mating, sleeping, defending has to be connected to Krishna. Otherwise, this whole hardship of coming to this planet, of bringing children, raising them, everything is a challenge. Imagine for the minor struggles and the pleasures that we go through. Everything is a struggle here, if not for the fact that we achieve something wonderful for ourselves and those who we are responsible for. That consciousness has to be there. We actually have no perception of suffering. We have no perception of existence. We have no perception of what this body is. If there was even the slightest perception of what this body is, we would be much, much better off. People who have very high consciousness, they can see the suffering of those who do not have high consciousness. They cry for them. That is what prompts compassion from the sadhus. That is what prompts the sadhus to leave Vrindavan and travel to different parts so that they could pass on the message. Because their consciousness is so high, and the perception at a very high level of consciousness is that they can really perceive suffering. They can perceive what it is to be in a womb. They can perceive what it is to be in this body. That perception and the sensitivity is so high that they can see real suffering. And they can see that, oh my God, you have come here, you have come to this planet, and you have suffered so much, and yet you are wasting your time. That is sadhu. Their compassion comes pouring forth because they have seen it, they have realized the truth. Realization of the truth means not only knowing who they are in Krishna's association, not only knowing who Krishna is, realization of the truth also means understanding nescience, understanding suffering. Srila Prabhupada cried for extremely wealthy golfers. I've told you this, right? Western golfers here. Why would he cry? What is the compassion which brings forth saying that, oh, this person is suffering? How could he say that a wealthy golfer who is probably out there, who has made his money, he's retired, he spends his time relaxing, playing golf, is suffering? That particular realization of suffering comes after self-realization. since that realization is not there, we do not take up the process of Krishna consciousness seriously. We have no perception of existence in this body. We have no perception of happiness. We have no perception of suffering. That's ignorance. This is a life of ignorance when that perception is not there. There is some inkling, there is some notion we are hearing, and we are starting to move forward. But it is not complete. It is not complete. So that's the principle of Grihastha-ashrama. The principle of Grihastha-ashrama is for us to recognize the struggle. The principle of Grihastha-ashrama is to bring forth souls into this world. Do not get mistaken by what I just said, saying that you should not bring forth children into this world. It's very auspicious to bring forth children into this world, recognizing that you're going to facilitate the journey of that soul. You have to recognize that. How many of you have heard of the story or read the story of Kardama Muni and Devahuti in the Bhagavatam? It's an extremely powerful account of what is marriage, what is the Grihastha-ashram. Extremely powerful account. You should take the time to read Kardama Muni and Devahuti's account. Kardama Muni was an extremely austere personality living in the forests, and he was performing yajna, he was performing his tapas. This was Satya Yuga. In Satya Yuga, his meditation and his tapas process used to go on sometimes for thousands of years. He could sit there for thousands of years and engage in meditation. Devahuti was the daughter of Swayambhuva Manu. She was the daughter of the emperor of the universe, of the whole world. She was the daughter of Manu. So when she came of age, being a very dutiful father, Manu, he is the setter of rules for mankind, he wanted to marry his daughter off to an eligible groom. And the realization came that there is no one more eligible than Kardama Muni. So he was instructed by the Lord himself, go bring your daughter and give her in marriage to Kardama Muni. So he, his wife and daughter Devahuti, they travel all the way and they reach Kardama Muni's meditation grounds. Well, yeah, he does. But there is the other side to it. Yes. He is basically instructed. He is instructed to get married, and then while he completes the instruction of getting married, he wants to get married, and he is worried, as any sadhu should be, of getting married. His concern is not so much of any other reason. He's saying, oh, I have to get married, which means this can be a problem. The Lord is instructing him, get married, it can be a problem. How can it be a problem? Because the pursuit and the goal of life can be thwarted, because now there can be a different goal. So he is worried. At that time the Lord assures him that you will be married to Devahuti. So he realizes that. So now Swayambhuva Manu comes with his daughter and he meets Kardama Muni. Now Kardama Muni, you can imagine, living in the forest, completely protected, there's no roof, there's nothing, he has nothing to offer. He's sitting there and he's doing very heavy tapasya. And Devahuti, she is from the palace. She has grown only in the palace all along. So they come and they marry them, and the marriage is such that they leave the daughter there and they leave, the parents. She has to surrender to the husband. The husband is wearing the bark of trees. His hair is matted to protect the hair from germs and so on. They use some juice of a particular tree and they apply it so that the hair doesn't have to be maintained. The bathing process is there's a pond, you have a dip early in the morning, 3-4 times a day, you come back and you sit your sadhana. Eating is berries and roots and so on that's available. No roof. And he is a heavy duty meditator. So the moment he gets married, he again goes on meditation. 5,000 years. 5,000 years he goes on meditation and she is serving him without a word. And in that process, she basically loses her health because she is not used to the hardship. She is not used to wearing tree barks. She is used to a palace life. She loses, all kinds of opulence, and she has to readjust. She adjusts and she focuses on the needs of her husband during those years when he is entering into the process of meditation, his sadhana. His sadhana becomes her sadhana. That's her focus. And then finally, he gets out of meditation and he sees his wife, and tears come to his eyes because he's seeing that she has suffered. He's a wonderful personality, so he says, "Oh, you have suffered for me." So he says, "What kind of a boon can I offer you?" She says, "My lord, since you always," she probably is indicating that, the dharma of marriage is to have progeny. To beget progeny is the dharma of marriage. Everything has a dharma. The dharma of the eye is to see. Dharma of the ear is to hear. The dharma of marriage is to beget progeny, Krishna conscious progeny. So she asks for children. So at that point, the husband, fully recognizing he is a sadhu, and he is a very austere sadhu, but recognizing that there is this particular dharma that has to be performed, this is the grahastha-ashrama, she has become very selfless in serving my needs, it is my duty to become selfless in serving her needs. Even though he may not be desiring such, he selflessly enters into the service of being able to give progeny to his wife, even though that's not his desire. So at that time, he makes wonderful arrangements. That is also dharma. He makes wonderful arrangements because he is so powerful, he creates a floating planet, he creates palaces. He's so powerful through his yogic prowess. He allows his wife to be restored to her previous beauty. And then he unites with his wife in that particular palace, and they beget progeny. And when the union of two people who are extremely selfless occurs, such a union is blessed with results which are extremely auspicious. The Lord himself appears as a son. Because two very selfless people of wanting to serve the Lord unite, then such selflessness is being awarded by the appearance of the Lord himself as a son. Lord Kapila is born to them. Kapila is born to them, and he is the personality of Godhead himself. He is born. So this beautiful story in the Srimad Bhagavatam is extremely powerful to understand for those who are entering into the ashrama of marriage, who are in the ashrama of marriage. It takes selflessness. The pursuit of truth has to be the focus. The desires of the soul has to be the center. It's a Krishna-centered marriage. In a Krishna-centered marriage, then you can afford to have selflessness. So he did not say that I will not engage in this process of begetting progeny because I have desires which I have to pursue, which is sadhana. She did not say that, oh, you have to stop your meditation in between because you're going to take care of my needs. So she served selflessly, and then he served selflessly, and this selflessness results in something wonderful, which is the birth of Lord Kapila. Krishna himself desires, saying, oh, if this is the level of parentage, then I would like to be your child. Direct service to Krishna. He is born as Lord Kapila, most auspicious. So there is absolutely nothing wrong in the Grahastha ashram. There's absolutely nothing wrong in begetting progeny, but one has to recognize the truth. One has to recognize that they are bringing in souls into this world. It's a very responsible position because such a soul has come into this world with great suffering. If that realization is not there, then there's great suffering. See, the power of sex life is such that people do not even realize there's suffering involved in this. If there is recognition of suffering, sex life would stop. Indiscriminate sex life will stop. There would be discrimination. There would be value. Circumstances would be thought of. Everything would be weighed carefully. Because that's how dangerous it is, the process of creation. It has to be valued. The Grahastha ashrama is an extremely powerful ashrama as a vehicle for us to be able to bring forth souls into this world who want to serve the Lord. If you can make that facility, it's a great service. It requires selflessness. It requires selflessness. And that's the principle of marriage too. Imagine the hellish life which results when two selfish people get together. The husband has his own agenda, the wife has his own agenda, and two selfish people have their own laundry list, and they're getting together, and they're thinking, this person has to solve and fix up and make me happy. The other person, you have to make me happy. Here's the laundry list. What can result out of that? Nothing wonderful. So that is the Grihastha-ashrama. So the Bhagavatam is instructive in so many amazing, wonderful, powerful ways. Very powerful. And this particular story of Kardama Muni and Devahuti, whenever someone approaches me saying they're trying for a child, I advise them to read the story of Kardama Muni and Devahuti. I say, take time, sit down, read about Kardama Muni and Devahuti. Understand that. If you do not understand, then it's difficult. Because that is the power of the Grihastha-ashrama. It requires, it's a very powerful service. It's a wonderful ashrama. And it is not different from any other ashrama. The opportunities for spiritual advancement exist fully. However, one has to recognize duties. One has to recognize the dharma associated with the Grihastha-ashrama, perform it accordingly. Then the senses can be captured. So the sense of mating, which is the most powerful sense or activity which can detract us, can also be dovetailed towards the Lord's service. Okay? Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur had 11 children. He is the seventh Goswami, one of the most powerful acharyas in our line, who practically rejuvenated Krishna consciousness, practically rejuvenated Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement, single-handed. And what was his prayer to the Lord? He said, allow me to bring forth a ray of Vishnu. Bring forth empowered progeny who would be able to assist me in your mission. That resulted in the birth of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. This is Bhakti Vinod Thakur. That resulted in the birth of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who was extremely powerful. The most important, the guru of Srila Prabhupada. So imagine, is there anything wrong in bringing forth such powerful personalities into this world who can save the entire universe? It is wonderful service, provided it is recognized. So there is absolutely no such thing as any particular activity being taboo. It should not be done. There is no activity which is prohibited in Krishna consciousness. Every activity can be carried out, but there is a certain principle of making it Krishna-centered. And this has nothing to do with pleasure that is obtained in the activity. Sometimes people get confused. They think that they become guilty, that even when they engage in uniting with their spouses, they become guilty of pleasure. It is like becoming guilty of eating prasadam and saying, oh, this laddu, I should not experience pleasure. My senses, I should not allow my senses to experience pleasure. It's the same thing. We serve Krishna. So we are not going to become inert and create psychological problems in our mind. We do not want to suppress. We want to understand very clearly that it is not the activity which is a problem, it is consciousness which is a problem. If you are engaging in that activity 100% for your pleasure, then that could be a problem because you could be bound by the rules of this universe. If you are engaging in that activity for the pleasure of the Lord, then you could be liberated. So one has to realize that and understand the import of the great suffering that can result if we do not understand what it is to bring forth souls into this world who are not going to be tethered, who are not going to be connected to Krishna. Because it is very easy to have all kinds of misconceptions about this ashrama. This is a wonderful ashrama, the Grihastha-ashrama. Most of our devotees in this particular age will be from the Grihastha-ashrama. There has been a very marked shift in the movement for many years. There has been a shift. And this shift is, our movement is becoming congregation based. We are having devotees who are all family people, grihasthis, who are all have their work life. They are professionals. They come home and then they engage in Krishna consciousness. So it's important for us to recognize the different aspects of this ashrama and treat it with respect, understanding that there's great responsibility. There has to be great recognition of leadership here. There's great responsibility in recognizing that the action which is being performed in this ashrama can affect the lives of others. So there's great responsibility that comes with taking on leadership positions. The Grihastha ashrama is a position of leadership, as much as any other ashrama, if not more. So let's understand this one more time. The verse. The senses are so strong and impetuous, O Arjuna, that they forcibly carry away the mind, even of a man of discrimination who is endeavoring to control them. So you cannot control them, my friends. You cannot control your senses, but you can dovetail your activity by becoming Krishna-centered. The more and more you become Krishna-centered, easier it would be for you to be able to perform sadhana bhakti. Easier it would be for you to stop leading a fragmented existence, because the senses become purified of lust and start aligning themselves with the interest of Krishna. Okay, what is the time, Suhas? Okay, I'm going to stop here. I think this was a pretty long class. We'll just take any questions. Please explain, the question is, please explain the correct process of eating. The process of eating is, again, it is centered around bringing Krishna into play. So the first thing that we would do is, the process of eating does not start when you have a plate of prasadam in front of you. Does it start then? It does not. The process of eating starts when you go to the supermarket to buy groceries. When you take the trouble of going to the grocery shop to buy vegetables, to buy grains, the process of eating starts there. If you are going to become conscious of being able to offer that particular activity to Krishna, you will have to become conscious that you are shopping for Krishna. You will be buying things in such a way, you'll be buying things in a meditative fashion. Imagine how powerful this is, that you can go to the supermarket and you start thinking, this vegetable is got to be purchased for Krishna. This fruit has to be purchased for Krishna. How can I do it in an efficient manner? How can I do it so Krishna would be have pleasure out of this? So we become very centered right from the beginning of going to the supermarket and buying groceries for Krishna. When we come home, the process of cooking starts. And the process of cooking has to be as importantly observed as much as we would observe the process of worshipping the deity of the Lord. Only uncivilized people would enter a kitchen without having a bath. This is Vedic injunction. This was Prabhupada's standards. If you want to cook for the deities, you want to cook for Krishna, get into the bathroom, have a bath, wear proper devotional clothes. Again, samskaras. Wear tilak. This tells you that you are entering into activity, you are cooking for someone very special. If you're going to have a special guest visit you at your house, wouldn't you be completely in a different mood? It would not be an ordinary day. You would wake up, you would clean the house, keep everything clean, because you're going to welcome someone very special. Every day, you can have someone very special visiting and honoring accepting your offering. So you wake up, before entering into the kitchen, ensure that you are clean, you wear clean clothes, you become meditative, there is tilak, you understand that you are going to cook for the Lord. This is ideal, my friends, because this is going to set the mood for you to be able to do something wonderful. If you do not set the mood, then it is mundane. Right? Most of us, we would cook for some other pleasure. Either I like it, or maybe when Matajis they cook, they say, oh, my child likes it, my husband likes it. Different considerations altogether. But then when you become focused that you're going to be cooking for the Lord, you wear a specific dress, you wear tilak, you enter into the kitchen is clean, everything is clean, the vegetables and the groceries have been purchased with great care. Then the process of cooking starts. While cooking, the focus is, what would he like to taste? And once we start meditating on it, the whole process of just going to the grocery, coming home, and then cooking itself is extremely purifying. And then we prepare this wonderful bhoga. We don't prepare it in haste, we prepare it nicely and we offer it. This is not about cooking 10 dishes. This is about just offering one sabji, a little rice and some dal, maybe a little chapati or whatever. Very simple fare. But if it can be done nicely, it can be purely, wonderfully meditative. So, offering bhoga starts with going to the groceries. What is the best way to buy vegetables? Where can I get those vegetables? If you take the trouble, keeping Krishna in the center, you will make immense advancement. There was this devotee in Vrindavan who passed on recently, just a couple of years back. And he used to make 6 offerings for Sri Radha Shyam Sundar in the Krishna Balaram Mandir. And the 6 offerings that he used to make used to be quite elaborate, quite detailed, to such an extent that he would not have time even to properly sleep, wake up and do his chanting. His chanting was done while doing the offerings. So those days, Srila Prabhupada was in Krishna Balaram Mandir, devotees noticed that he was not chanting. And they went and asked Srila Prabhupada, saying, Srila Prabhupada, he is not chanting. Prabhupada said, that is fine. Let him continue cooking for Radha Shyam Sundar. He used to cook 6 offerings, no one else used to help, right through until his old age when he could not even move. Extremely, very, very advanced personality. So the process of offering bhoga to the Lord is so powerful in purifying us that it should not be taken lightly. It is capable of delivering us. It is capable of delivering us. It does not, however, mean that you focus so much on cooking that you don't chant. I'm just giving you an example, saying Prabhupada allowed the devotee to make 6 offerings. And 6 offerings, apparently these days, I do not know how many devotees do that. Right? 6, I don't know how many devotees are making 6 offerings. It is not easy. If you have to cook for the Mangalarti, you will have to wake up at 2 o'clock to make the offering, fresh offering. Because Krishna eats sweets at 4 o'clock. He's Bengali. Right? He wakes up, he eats peta. At 4 o'clock in the morning, he can have sweets. Because that's Krishna. He can digest. You and I cannot. Right? We shouldn't be worried. So why make him starve and why give him dal roti if you can have sweets? Because he can have sweets, he can digest. He does not have sugar problems. So they make a wonderful offering of sweets right in the morning, again at 7:30, again in the afternoon there's Rajbhog, again in the evening, again in the night. So 6 offerings means your life starts at 2:30 in the morning. Right? You'll have to wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning for you to be able to keep everything ready at 4 o'clock when Mangalarti, when they open the door. So that offering can be made. So being a cook for Radha Shyam Sundar is not easy. But that process is so powerful. If you can do it wonderfully, it's so powerful. We do not need to make 6 offerings. The one offering that we make, if we make it in a meditative manner, it can go a long way. Starts with grocery shopping, come home, understand that this is as important as doing deity worship, have your bath, wear the proper clothes, cut your vegetables, do whatever you need to do, make that offering, offer it to the Lord, and then honor. So that's the process of purification through eating. It starts with grocery shopping. How amazing it is. How amazing it is that you are just going to fill your belly, but Krishna is awarding you purification in the process of filling your belly. It is so powerful. Any other question? Okay, the question is, what if we have very close people who are very close to us who are not devotees? Should we not eat food at their place? The first and the best solution which I can offer, whenever you visit them, you do the cooking. Okay? That's the first principle. You do the cooking, you offer it to the Lord, and help them become devotees. Okay? But at the same time, you also have to recognize you cannot violate any rule, it is not favorable. Sometimes relatives could be meat eaters, they could be eating meat. They could be violating some gross principles of the universe. We do not want to subject ourselves to such gross violations. You will have to draw a line very clearly of what you are and who you are. I remember my godbrother Vriksha Prabhu, who comes here for playing music on certain days. They go for Thanksgiving dinner to their parents' home. And the parents are not used to prasadam. So all the cooking is being done by the devotees when they bring it and they have a Thanksgiving dinner. So you could do that. You do not want to offend your relatives. You do not want to offend your relatives by saying that my standard is so high that I don't care for you. That is not favorable either. We care for everyone. The parents, the brothers, sisters, they have been with us, they have raised us, they have helped us out. So it is our duty to turn around and lend a hand, and we do it diplomatically, nicely. One, we can offer them the opportunity to taste Krishna Prasadam. Number two, we can tell them in very gentle ways that this is what you have been trying and this has worked out very well for us. So there is always this principle of doing things, right? There's a particular statement. You have to do the right thing, but you also have to do it the right way. So you don't want to be trampling on people's foot. And then otherwise what they would think is, look at this. These people are showing off. They were so wonderful. They used to come with us. They used to eat all kinds of wonderful things. Look what happened after they turned and got in touch with the Hare Krishnas. The Hare Krishnas have spoiled them. So they would start blaming Srila Prabhupada. They would start blaming the devotees for unnecessarily, for nothing. So it's important for us to recognize that there is some requirement of diplomacy. Not crooked diplomacy, some diplomacy as a service so that we could bring them closer to Krishna. Right? Any other question? Okay, Sandeep Prabhu's question is, why cannot we taste the food while we are cooking? Because that would allow us to make proper bhoga. Well, I have to tell you, Sandeep Prabhu, not everyone is Shabari Mata, where you can taste and offer it to the Lord. So, the best way to do it, and I'll tell you, this is out of experience, and I'm sure you have experienced it as everybody else who has cooked for the Lord. If your intentions are right, the super soul who is within the heart, Krishna, will guide you exactly on how he wants to taste. What kind of taste does he want? He will guide you. So that particular taste will manifest itself in your offering. So what we should do is, we should approach this in a surrendered mood, where we want to cook for him, and automatically we would be able to do our best. Okay? It is not recommended to taste, it is offensive. It is not recommended to taste before offering it to the Lord. Because that intention of tasting may not be so much pure that we want to offer something wonderful. The intention would be that wanting some sense gratification. So we'll have to give up those propensities. It is not considered suchi. It's not considered wonderful. You can do wonderful things without tasting. And, I think you can do it. I'm confident. Any other question? Yeah, these are challenges. If relatives cook meat, these are challenges. We don't want to be contaminated. We do not want to encourage such contamination. We would want to take care. See, sincere honesty without false pride, requesting your dear relatives, saying, this is the path I have chosen, this is what I have been doing, I have been experiencing wonderful happiness in the last 2 years, 3 years, or a year I've been with Krishna consciousness. I'm just requesting you to support me. I think there will be no relative who would say no. They would probably bring in fresh pots, they will bring in new pots, they will cook for you. I don't think you should have a problem with that. It should not be a challenge. Depend on Krishna. It should not be that we are not dependent on Krishna. We are dependent on Krishna for everything, including serving him. On our own, we are incapable. Anything else? Okay. Yes. There is practically no difference. There isn't any difference. That specific pastime, the context, I'll have to study the verse in which this particular statement is being made for me to answer that. The question is about Rishabhadev's birth and the accusation made by the Brahmanas that the aspiration is material. I'll have to read the context. I do not want to make a comment on it at this time. There is really no difference because both the personalities were personalities of Godhead, Rishabhadev and Kapila Muni. So we can talk about it in the next class. Specific verse that has to be read. We'll stop here. Srila Prabhupada ki. Prabhupada ki. I think you'll have to turn this off also. I think we have to worry that. Yeah, I can give it to you. I think it's the third canto, but I can give you the specific word. Is that third canto? I can see that. So. Okay, if you have, I can do it here. No, it's okay. I can look it up.